Okay, looks like we had a few additional folks trickle in there on the webinar, and just in the interest and respect for everyone's time, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Christopher Chung. I have the privilege of serving as the CEO of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. I want to thank each of you who is carving out time from your busy schedules to attend today's roundtable webinar discussion. This is part of our Onward as One roundtable series. Really appreciate the folks from the Piedmont-Triad region who are helping us co-host, but also provide their insights today. We're looking forward to a lot of great comments and information from people who are going to be part of the panel this afternoon. So our team at the EDPNC will continue to be posting to our social media platforms over the next 45 or 50 minutes or so. Would definitely encourage all of you to do that as well. Again, whether you're an existing business owner or executive, whether you're with an organization that's wanting to learn more about what EDPNC and its partners can do to help existing firms. If you happen to hear some good information or content that you would like to share with your social media platform, we certainly encourage you to do that as well. Just go ahead and use that hashtag that you see up on the screen, Onward as One. And that'll make sure that all of those posts are all grouped together and easily found. I'm going to turn it over here in a second to Stan Kelly, the CEO of the Piedmont-Triad Partnership. Stan and his organization have been generous enough to help co-host today's roundtable discussion. Before I turn things over to Stan, though, we're going to play a quick 60-second spot, again, part of our Onward as One campaign, really designed to just raise awareness of some of the services and resources that our organization, the EDPNC, wants existing businesses around the Piedmont-Triad region to be aware of. So we're going to go ahead and roll that video, and when we're done with that, we're going to hand things off to Stan Kelly from the Piedmont-Triad Partnership. Thank you very much.
Good morning, North Carolina. It's a new day. Across the state, we're opening up doors, setting up shops, and bringing in first shifts. We're putting in the work to forge ahead. And with the help of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, we move onward as one, making connections, sparking collaboration, providing guidance. North Carolina businesses aren't just enduring, but achieving. From major cities to small towns, the future is just getting started. Our sheer will to build a thriving state has always been and always will be what keeps us ahead. And we're building the North Carolina of tomorrow today. North Carolina businesses like yours can reach their full potential with EDPNC's COVID recovery resources, grant and loan expertise, startup counseling, export assistance, and workforce development. North Carolina, let's move onward as one. See you in the morning.
Chris, thank you for that introduction. This is Stan Kelly, and I'm delighted to be a part of the program this afternoon and to be your moderator. As the video just said, it is a new day, and so we look forward to talking about opportunities across the region as we look forward. So I'm excited to be joined by Chris and the EDPNC group to provide another perspective on the COVID-19 recovery. Today we have an agenda that will cover a number of things. We'll hear stories of resilience from businesses within our region. We'll also discuss economic challenges and opportunities as we look forward and recover from the pandemic. And we'll explore some of the valuable counsel and services that EDPNC provides to help businesses big and small through recovery and beyond. We're grateful for the role that EDPNC plays across the state of North Carolina, and particularly here in the Triad region. So Chris, thank you to you and your team for bringing this program to our region. We have a number of panelists with us this afternoon, and I would like to briefly introduce them for today's discussion. As you met previously, of course, Christopher Chung, CEO of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. We also have Chris Morris. Chris is the Vice President of Custom Contract Furnishings here in the Triad. We have Lee Robertson. Lee is the Director of Scientific Communication and Operations. He's with Kepley Biosystems, Inc. Brent Christensen, President and CEO of the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce. We also have Lauren Hill, President of the High Point Economic Development Corporation. We have John Loyak, the Vice President of Global Business Services at EDPNC. and our own TRACY DELLINGER, Existing Industry Expansions Manager right here in the Piedmont-Triad region. So we'll have a number of questions and we'll move them around the table and get different perspectives and hope that there'll be some nuggets through this conversation that are useful for all of those who've joined us on this call. So I wanted to kick off by allowing our panelists to give a brief organizational update. What is your organization doing or seeing in light of the pandemic? This is kind of a 2-minute response to kind of keep it tatty. So Chris, I'll start with you, Chris Chung, and tell us about what EDPNC is seeing during this time.
Sure. And again, thank you so much, Stan. I know you've got a busy schedule, so I appreciate you joining us today and helping moderate. You all are an important partner organization to ours in the Triad region. A lot of folks may know our organization, the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, more for the work that we do with many of our local partners on recruiting new companies here to the state. Just up the road from you all, for example, you look at something like Ontex up in Rockingham County, great example of a team effort to attract a new employer to the region. And that's great. I think business recruitment, we have continued to see a lot of interest in North Carolina in spite of this pandemic, as well as obviously successes like Ontex and dozens of other recruitment wins across the entire state. Thanks to our strong business climate rankings, be it Forbes magazine, be it Site Selection magazine. I think those are the kinds of things that continue to keep the state of interest to companies that are thinking about where they'll locate and expand. But we're also responsible for other types of economic development at the EDPNC, including areas like promoting the state for tourism, specifically leisure travel, trying to get those visitors to come spend their vacation and their vacation dollars here. And as you can imagine, in the midst of this pandemic where people are really paring back on a lot of those types of travel decisions because they're unsure of the risk, we are seeing that reduced demand pretty solidly across the board in North Carolina as well. We're probably down anywhere from 30 to 40% of where we were a year ago when you look at some of those tourism metrics. It's very much that K-shaped recovery that you hear people talk about, and things went down quickly, but for some industries, they're bouncing up rather rapidly. In others, they're continuing to skip along the bottom there, and the recovery will be a little bit slower. Either way, whether we're doing business recruitment or whether we're promoting the state for tourism, another important part of our mission is to serve the needs of existing employers in North Carolina. We don't want to take for granted for 1 minute that the companies in the state already are doing just fine. That's, in fact, a big part of the reason that we're doing this series of roundtables is to make folks aware of the ways that organizations like EDPNC and our many partners can be of assistance to companies as they look to grow, expand, hopefully add jobs, make more investment in North Carolina. TRACY DELLINGER is a member of our existing industry support team for the Triad region. I'm excited that she's able to join today, get her name out there, get some of her perspectives out there, and most importantly, help inform businesses and business owners of the ways that she can be a partner to their future growth. Because when they do that, all of us benefit, whether you're in the Triad region or here in North Carolina. So again, really appreciate the folks joining the call today, as well as the panelists who are going to provide their information.
Thank you, Chris. And let me turn to John and ask John to provide his perspective on existing industry. John?
Thank you, Stan. And again, thanks very much for hosting us today. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to second what Chris said about TRACY DELLINGER and her work here in the region. The one thing I always hear from people after they meet TRACY is that they wish they had met her earlier. So if you don't know her yet, today's a great day for that. I recommend you do get to know her to find out all the things that she can do to help your businesses recover from some of the challenges you're facing. Every day brings a different challenge to our team and your businesses. TRACY is your link to countless business services and resources needed to navigate both the good times and the bad. She advises businesses, both large and small. She covers all industries. And the best part is these services are available to the businesses in the region at no cost. So whether you're dealing with the challenges presented by COVID, or you're looking to expand in the region, or if you're looking to set up new export markets, we're here to help. With that, I'd love to turn things over to TRACY so that she can introduce herself as well. TRACY?
Thanks, John. And again, I appreciate the panel being here. You guys are great partners. My name is TRACY DELLINGER, and I cover the 11 county of the Piedmont-Triad region that starts bordering Virginia with Surrey, Stokes, Rockingham, and Caswell County, and then moving down to Yadkin, Forsyth, Guilford, Alamance, Randolph, Davidson, and Davie. It's a great region to work in. We've got a lot of assets here, and again, great partners. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you, John. So now let's turn to Chris Morris, Custom Contract Furnishing. This is a local business that has been really resilient during COVID. And I'd love to hear some background on your businesses and what challenges you're facing now, Chris.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. It's been an honor. Actually, my company is Custom Contract Furnishings. My parent company is Whitewood Industries. We've been around since 1983. We're an ESOP, so we have 325 employees, roughly 75 minority, 25% non-minority. So we're actually, all the employees are owners. So since pivoting medical gowns, we added over 60 new employees. We started making gowns back in mid-May in the pandemic. My factory is actually in High Point, North Carolina. So, and then our parent company is over in Thomasville. We have 6 buildings, roughly over 800,000 square feet, plus an 80,000 square foot furniture showroom in High Point. So before the pandemic, my primary business is actually upholstery. I do hospitality and healthcare upholstery. I do private label healthcare, but I manufacture for companies like Hyatt, Marriott, etc. My parent company, we do solid hardwood furniture. So our biggest challenge during the pandemic, being a custom furniture manufacturer, we're custom working through real high pressure, time sensitive projects. So we typically, from design to start to finish, we're at 8 to 12 weeks. So we have to do everything very mathematically, methodically, a level type of manufacturing. I'd say our biggest challenge was finding sewers. Once we decided to make the pivot, back up a little bit, when we started making gowns, I really thought this was only gonna be through January or through June, July. And it's actually turned out to be a full-time business for us. So, and let's say in the very beginning, our biggest challenge was finding the employees, the sewers, the folders, and so on. And then the other big challenge is actually just ramping up so fast. I was thinking when we got into it, it was going to be a quick 40, 50,000 gallon order. And I believe our first order was 250,000 gowns. And it kept growing. We kept getting better and better, and so people came to us. So I'd say lastly, it was finding the materials and the stuff that you don't know when you get into manufacturing, the stuff you don't know that you don't know, such as the CNC machines not being able to keep up with your manufacturing, with your sewers and so on. So, but we managed to overcome it. So enjoyed it.
So Chris, are you at full employment now, or are you still looking for additional employees?
Actually, we are at full employment, but we just received a Department of Defense contract will go roughly through next September, and we're looking at between 100 and 150 employees that we'll hire for that. We're going to start making the poly bag or poly medical gowns, level 2, level 3 gowns.
Good. Outlook sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it's been exciting.
All right, let's turn to Lee Robertson. And Lee, first of all, tell us a little bit about Kepley Biosystems, and then comment on how resilient you've been during COVID as part of the story.
Thanks, Dan. Yeah, as you can see from Chris, everybody knows that North Carolina is a powerhouse in manufacturing, but we're also a very dominant force in research and development with a world-renowned system of universities and prestigious research facilities. Our company, Kepley Biosystems, we hope to keep that legacy going by bringing an academic focus to developing solutions to critical problems that face both the public and the planet, and to bring products that would benefit both while serving these massive worldwide markets. And we're rooted from the Joint School of Nanoscience and Nanoengineering, which, if you don't know, is a collaboration between UNCG and NCA&T universities. And honestly, it's just a monument to North Carolina ingenuity and the ability to bring the industry and academia together. To date here at Kepley Biosystems, we've been completely grant funded, and we've built a huge portfolio of just great innovations, including alternative for crab and lobster bait that would replace forage fish as used as a bait, which can benefit our fisheries in great ways and keep the ecosystem rolling. We've also got several companion animal behavioral products. And what our latest breakthrough that we're really proud about is a bedside diagnostic that can rapidly detect septicemia, which is the #1 cause of untimely death in hospitals today, not to mention increased cost. But like most people, we had really big plans for 2020. We were going to work with some Canadians to get our bait tested in one of the largest fisheries up there. But overnight, just the industry collapsed when China stopped getting the lobsters. So that brought some uncertainty there. And we were also just coming off of a very successful phase 1 grant with horseshoe crabs, where we were going to husband them in our facility in Brown Summit in North Greensboro. And because they're needed, they're a threatened species that provide a substance needed for biomedical industry to test all the blood, any blood-borne pathogen that could be in drugs, medical devices, and vaccines especially. We also produced 4 publications off of that research, and we were really hopeful to get phase 2 to continue to be able to scale up and then sell this substance, and while continuing to care for these horseshoe crabs. However, of course, COVID came around, and most of the federal and state money were redirected toward that research. So, of course, the pandemic was an unforeseen setback for everyone, but we realized that our company needed to reassess our way forward. We began to look at our innovations, see what we could offer as solutions to the COVID-19 pandemic and ways to plan for future outbreaks. We would also need to seek outside funding and find outside investors and partnerships to bring these ideas to fruition. So it was apparent that we needed to expand our network and connect with other North Carolina businesses and entrepreneurs. And that's where I met Tracy and how we became involved with the EDPNC.
Well, thank you, Lee. I did not know we made bait right here in the Triad region to satisfy all of our fishing hobbies. Interesting. Small world. Okay, we're going to pivot a little bit and bring it even more close to home. I'm fortunate, as mentioned earlier, to have Brent Christensen with me as well as Lauren Hill. We're going to take just a few minutes and provide a few updates on what's going on across the region and what we refer to as the Carolina Core. So I'll start at Brent and Lauren and then turn to you. So the long and the short of it at a regional level, we went into the pandemic with unemployment at 3.7%, which was one of the best places we had been from an employment standpoint in well over a decade. And now we believe we're somewhere in the 7% range, give or take, depending on which month it is. But through the last several months, we've actually had some things really working in our favor. Certainly the industrial sector has been very strong, logistics and transportation, and companies in the biotech business, as you just heard. We've added about 2,500 new jobs broadly across the region during this challenging time. On the other side, there are clearly some challenges in the service sector, as you are all well aware of. And one industry that was a real strength for us, and will be again, the aviation sector has been challenged due to the pandemic. So that just at a high level, I'd share those comments. And Lauren, let me turn to you and have you start, and then I'll turn to Brent.
Well, as you might imagine, back in March, our client activity came to a screeching halt, but that didn't last long. We've been working with companies since. I'm an economic developer for the city of High Point, and here in High Point, we saw not just companies that we were recruiting trying to come here, reactivate their interest, but we've been working with local companies the entire time and meeting with them, helping them, relaying information to them that we've gotten from EDPNC. We'll talk about that a little later. So the client activity has been impressive. I'm working now on compiling our annual report for the year, and we work in High Point very closely with Brent in Greensboro, that you'll hear him speak in just a moment. The Greensboro Chamber, we have an alliance. So I'm listing the projects of the year for all of Guilford County, for High Point and Greensboro and the rest of Guilford County. And it's an impressive list of companies that, despite all that's going on around us, are doing things because they have pivoted, or in some cases, they've just continued on what they were doing. So it's been impressive to see that kind of activity continuing. We've been careful all through this not to ignore our local companies. The existing companies are so important to us. And so we've worked with them just as we have been with trying to recruit new companies to town. But I'm pleased to say that in both cases, we've seen those kinds of successes. Local companies are indeed expanding, growing, making plans for the future, and new companies have announced here, and we have more in line to hopefully come our way.
Thanks, Lauren. Great report. Brent, let's turn to you.
You know, Stan, when I think of 2020, I think of that TV commercial that I think we've all seen where it says life comes at you fast. And things have really come at us fast in 2020. And it hasn't caused us to refocus, but it's caused us to really shift a little bit of focus over to our existing industry. And probably not just a little bit, a lot. You know, we've got to do, and we continue to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help our local business. We had to do that almost from day one. I remember standing in front of the new Performing Arts Center in Greensboro, watching a basketball game, getting ready to go over to the Greensboro Coliseum, and watching basketball teams walk off the basketball court and knowing this is not good, and this is not going to be good probably for a while. And on that day, we met as a team and started our daily action calls. We knew that things were going to be coming at us fast. We knew that almost on an hourly basis, but certainly on a daily basis, there was going to be something new that we needed to spread the word about. So for about 2.5 months, we had a daily action call of our membership and really the business community. We didn't limit it to anybody. The business community of Greensboro every day had a call where we talked about needs of those businesses and how they could be met. We certainly talked an awful lot during that time of the resources that were available, especially with EDPNC and others. We have one person on our staff who works on existing industry in our economic development team. Her name is Meredith Berger. She works hand in hand with Tracy on a regular basis, and they did a great job of getting the word out. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but she also focuses on our manufacturers very specifically. And it became very important for those manufacturers to talk. They typically got together on a regular basis. Now we're doing this virtually. And so our Manufacturers Council started to meet virtually and talk to each other about important things like how do we make sure our employees can get to work when we're at a stay-at-home order? How do we screen them for temperature? How are you all doing all of this? And some great advice was handed out from company to company. Certainly we had some great advice coming from the state and federal and local authorities, but it was really great to see those companies work together and work through some of those issues together when they needed to. And we had that great opportunity. And then, you know, right now, and I know Stan, you would echo me on this, you know, right now we're into the holiday season. And a lot of our businesses, a lot of our small businesses rely on revenue during the holiday season, whether they be a restaurant or a retailer or that sort of thing. And so we can't forget them either. And right now, with the help of our friends in Alamance County, Winston-Salem, High Point, and certainly with the Piedmont-Triad partnership, we're working on this Triad Together challenge, where we're challenging each other to spend as much as you can locally this holiday season, especially within our small locally owned businesses.
Thanks, Brent, and thanks for mentioning Triad Together. So let's turn back to Chris Chung for a few minutes and kind of look a little forward if we could, Chris. So how can the Carolina Corps and the state position themselves for future growth in light of the pandemic? And what are some of the top challenges and opportunities as you look forward? Chris?
Sure. And I think I'm thankful in my role that North Carolina is such an economically diverse state. I think when you are facing headwinds like we've all faced over the past 9 months, it helps to have our our eggs in multiple baskets, if you will, in terms of the numbers of different industries and sectors that make up North Carolina's economy, because we're not over-invested in a sector that's extremely vulnerable, for example, to something like what a pandemic does. But I think long-term at a state level, yeah, I still subscribe to the belief that states need to invest in core building blocks like education and infrastructure. You look at someone like custom contract furnishings, that's going to be hiring 100 or 150 people here in the near future. You look at Kepley Biosystems and the type of work they do, that's very academic, research-based, scientific-based. These are positions that require varying degrees of skill. These are not unskilled positions, in other words. And even though our unemployment rate is a few points higher than at the beginning of this pandemic, that doesn't mean it's gotten much easier for a lot of companies to still find those qualified workers and applicants that they need to fill the positions, regardless of the sector that they're in. And I think education plays a key role in that, whether those are community colleges like Guilford Community College or Davidson Community College or Alamance Community College, whether there's some of the four-year universities that are in a market like the Triad region. Again, that could be UNC Greensboro, NC A&T, Wake Forest, Elon. You guys have a lot of these educational systems that are designed to crank out the talent that your employers in the market are going to be needing into the future, as well as employers that you hope to attract to the area. I think of the Triad region, I think opportunities certainly abound in areas like advanced manufacturing, be that aerospace, be that the automotive sector. We will get past the pandemic, and so some of these impacts to some of the different industry sectors, that will gradually resolve itself. And I still think manufacturing is going to be a key part of what drives this economic region. And so from our perspective, some of the services that we hope to connect existing manufacturers with are services like export assistance. These manufacturers that are here in the Triad region, if they're looking to go global, to sell more of their products overseas, that's absolutely something we want to be able to help those companies to do, because that can be an opportunity for the region to add jobs and add investment when they develop more customers around the world for their manufacturers. Chris Morris talked about picking up that new contract with the Department of Defense. There's a great state resource that helps a lot of our small and medium-sized North Carolina companies figure out whether they're ready to, and then how to go ahead and bid on work with the Pentagon, with the Department of Defense, with the U.S. military. That's called the North Carolina Military Business Center. Again, another great resource that a lot of existing businesses may benefit from being aware of. And again, it all boils down to why we're doing this roundtable series, is to just make companies know that we are here. We are here to help. They're the ones creating the jobs, making the investment, but sometimes a little bit of help pointing them towards the resources that can help them get there. That's really the kind of role that we want to be able to play at EDPNC, working together, obviously, with our local partner organizations in economic development.
Thanks, Chris. And so let's turn to the other Chris Morris. And Chris, as you've worked your way through the last several months, and how are some ways that EDPNC has helped you navigate the challenges, and why should other businesses consider connecting with EDPNC?
I'm going to second what Chris just said, because after meeting TRACY, she was able to help me with the IES at North Carolina State, as well as PTAC, because PTAC really was really valuable with us, because they helped us navigate with one of our Department of Defense contracts, or getting into it, because I had never done it before. So we actually went from making furniture to making PPE, and then learning about government bids. So TRACY's been a blessing. I'll just put that in simple. We received so much valuable information, directing us to resources, contacts. Actually, TRACY even sent me, gave me a list to help me find all the other states that were bidding for PPE. So, it's been a great partnership. And also just recently with the DoD, we're actually having to invent, we're getting ready to patent it, but it's a new process to manufacture the poly gowns to compete against China or Asia. So TRACY actually was just in my office the other day helping connect dots for money, because this is going to be pretty substantial. We've got to build 50 of these machines to be able to do 1.5 to 2 million gowns a month. So yeah, it's been been wonderful. And also because of Tracy's connections with the IES, we were just recently given a grant by our state to actually get our FDA accreditation or credit. So we're going to still stick with manufacturing upholstery, but we've created a brand new position, and I owe a lot to Tracy for helping me connect the dots.
Tracy, I see you blushing. We're all giving Tracy a high five. Get ready for your phone to ring off the hook, Tracy. Nice job. Thank you, Chris. Lee Robertson, so talk about how EDPNC has been your partner and helped you through the pandemic.
Yeah, I absolutely can't say enough good things about Tracy. As we mentioned, up to this point, Kepley Biosystems has been entirely grant funded, and we understand that process. But it's like someone else said, you don't know what you don't know. So transitioning and finding investors and other stuff is a different skill set that we needed help with. And Tracy's been fantastic in helping us make those contacts, especially with Meredith Berger at the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce and Dennis Lewis at the Business Development for the defense industry. Just helped us show us those resources. And as we pivoted, we also took other technologies that we developed along the way, doing our own research, such as when we were working with the horseshoe crabs in their natural environment, you have to keep a very sterile environment to ensure that everything is still safe. And we took those technologies and put them into patents, and such as a mask that can sterilize both incoming and exhaled air that provide pathogen-free breathable air to the user, and then microbicidal garments imbued with nanotechnology that we developed at the JSNN. But we just didn't have the contacts to reach out to people to help bring these ideas to fruition. And I can't thank the EDPNC for helping us make that bridge. It is enough.
Thank you, Lee. Tracy, I think we're giving you your performance appraisal right here on Zoom. Anyway, good job. So, hey, Brent, let's turn back to you. And how have you been working with EDPNC?
Yeah, you know, there's a saying in the economic development world that economic development is a team sport, and never more so than 2020. You know, again, everything that was coming at us fast in that March-April timeframe, we relied on Tracy and EDPNC to kind of help us sort through everything, right? We went on lockdown for a while, and our manufacturers were worried to death that their employees were not going to be able or allowed to get to work. And so, yeah, we went straight to EDPNC and Tracy and said, hey, talk to us about what's going to be required for an essential business or an essential employee certification, so that we can make sure that those folks are continuing to work. We know that those products that they're making right here in the Triad are going to be critical for our country going forward. We want to make sure that they're continuing to work. She did a great job with that. Helped us work with companies on supply chain disruptions, recovery planning, SBA and CARES Act lender resources, employee procedures, protocols for companies, unemployment assistance, reopening practices and guidelines. Just a wonderful resource for all of that information. And she continues to do. We're still working in this team environment, and we continue to share those resources. You know, some of the other things is, you know, our medical community was somewhat desperate for PPE, and EDPNC did a great job of making sure that we had manufacturing and supplier lists for the region and the state for PPE providers and equipment and critical supplies, with that sort of thing. And then also worked with other companies that are here that were making things that needed those supplies as well. So being kind of a matchmaker was a great asset to our community to be able to get the resources needed to make some of this PPE and make some of these things that were going to be so critical for us going forward.
Thanks, Brent. Let's turn. Lauren, what would you add to Brent's comments?
Well, in High Point, we've been doing Tracy's positive annual reviews for many years. Before she's joined the EDPNC when it was created, before it was created, she worked for the North Carolina Department of Commerce, so based here in the Triad. So she's been working with local companies here for a long time and been an asset the whole time, and continues to change. it wasn't just all the pandemic stuff and all the information she relayed to us to relay to our companies, but we've been working with her all along with projects, and she's helped us in 2020 with new projects coming to the area that are going to be expanding here in High Point. And then also, as she has done the entire time, working with local companies, not just companies that are in a growth mode, local companies that need help, that she could point them in a new direction, that just so she enjoys the opportunity to meet with companies on a regular basis, to get to know them. And then they might not even think they need help, and then she could offer something to them. We're lucky that the state has a TRACY DELLINGER all across the state in every different region. And so we're lucky we got TRACY and know her well, but it's an EDPNC function statewide to help local companies, whether they're going to expand, whether they just need help with some particular issue, where they just need some direction, if they just want to talk about things. So we've been very fortunate to be able to take advantage of someone we know, an ally right here in our midst.
Awesome, Lauren. Thank you for that. So now, TRACY, we're going to turn to you, and if there are other things that you and your team are able to do for the region, please share that.
Yeah, well, I am blushing, and really do appreciate all of you. This is a team effort, and again, I think this is a great region, and we have great partners. Brent, Lauren, thank you for being on this, and Stan, and Chris and Lee, you guys have been so easy to help because you've actually followed through on the different recommendations and meeting with the resources, because there's not one for all in that regard. So you guys make this job easy and fun, and I really enjoy working with you, and I appreciate you being on here. So in addition to the projects that we work, which that's usually what people read about, we do a lot of things, as Lauren just mentioned, outside of that. And I remember, Brent, when you say things came to a screeching halt, one of the last things I did, I think in person, was with Meredith at the Manufacturing Council, and we had brought in the state recycling team and waste reduction partners to talk to the manufacturers about how to, which covered High Point companies as well, but to talk to them about how they can reduce waste and recycle products. And so I completely remember that, because that's the last thing that we did. But Meredith, Sandy, Marshall, great partners, Penny, I do think I benefit from being in the triad for a while, and being able to call these folks. Some of the other things we do, recently the industry expansions team at NC State reached out, and they had a company who wanted to expand, and they needed help connecting with the DOT. They had a very specific product that they made and needed to determine if that would be something of interest in North Carolina. So through my DOT liaison, was able to find a contact for them and an answer, so that they can then make a decision about whether they want to move forward with that. We've also connected people to the loan program being offered through the Piedmont-Triad Regional Council for companies during the COVID. Our international trade team hasn't even been mentioned. They also help with companies, so we're continuously helping companies that want to export and look at other markets, and hopefully some grant funding that might help them enter into those new markets. And then I can't go without saying our community college and workforce development teams here are great. We've all worked together. It's a really, this is just a great region to work in. I think there's so many opportunities, and obviously I have great partners. So thank you all for being here. And I don't want everybody to think there's an answer for everything. There's always not a solution to every problem, but you have a team here who's willing to at least look for an answer and try to help you as best as we can. So thank you.
Thanks, TRACY. And as Brent says, it indeed is a team sport. So as we all learned this morning, with the first vaccine administered, there's light at the end of this tunnel. And so I want to turn to Chris Morris and Lee and ask, in just a few sentences, how do you foresee it changing the way you operate your business going forward as we kind of come out the other side of the pandemic? Chris, I'll turn to you first.
I'd say actually, well, we've got a little bit of a hurdle with as I mentioned earlier, I do make hospitality furniture, upholstery, and with the hospitality industry, it's not looking too good, at least for the next year. So we've actually pivoted our factory. We're in the process of starting to make a residential upholstery. The residential industry has exploded, so we're going to benefit from that. And then we'll ride that wave. We're not, we've got a lot of customers in the pipeline, but I know it's going to be a rough road ahead for that side, but the residential side is exploding. As far as as I mentioned earlier, we've gotten a grant, or we're getting a grant with the FDA. So we've created a company called Carolina PPA, and it's a total separate. Is basically we're spinning off a new division, which will be hiring employees to actually make the gowns. We'll be hiring. We got our skilled sewers that we're going to be hiring, and then we've also got the welders that we're actually manufacturing for the poly gowns. So, and that's, as I mentioned earlier, that's going to really help us compete against Asia and get into the actual be able to supply it to the hospitals across the country. So, yes, it's exciting. It's giving me a little bit more gray hairs than I really care to have, but the future does look pretty bright. So.
Thanks, Chris. For some of you saw on 60 Minutes this past Sunday, the whole PPE industry was featured, and it looks like a big industry as far as the eye can see around the country, around the globe for that matter. Lee, let's turn to you. What do you see looking forward?
Well, COVID caught all of us unaware, but thankfully the solution is on the horizon, like you said. But we've known for a while about another imminent danger, which is potentially going to be worse if we don't do something about it. And I think the research community's immediate concern should be tackling antimicrobial resistance. And if there's any silver lining to this at all, is that the pandemic may help bring a better public attention to it overall. Essentially, superbugs or other bacterial issues are evolving and rendering our current antibiotics ineffective and outpacing our ability to make newer ones. So it's going to cripple modern medicine if the research community doesn't get ahead of it. Our team is hopeful that we can get a new grant from the NSF that allow us to continue our work with the horseshoe crabs and develop that sepsis diagnostic. And if you can catch a sepsis quick enough, you can treat the patient and administer the correct antibiotics, which will help you reduce the load that you're giving and slow down this antimicrobial resistance. And it could just save countless lives if we can get this product to market. So that's where we're going to likely focus our attention. And we hope to bring that forward. But additionally, we're going to continue seeking external investments and partnerships from all of our program sectors, including the bait and the animal companion products. But we're certainly going to continue working with EDPNC to expand our network in all of our programs and see what we can bring to this tradition of excellence of North Carolina-based research.
Thank you, Lee, and I speak for everyone on this call that we have a newfound appreciation for those of you working on micro things like antimicrobial. I can't even hardly pronounce it, but thank you for what you do.
I tripped over it a couple times myself.
Okay, so we're going to move along here. Kind of one final question for some of our panelists. This is going to go to Brent, Lauren, and Chris Chung. So from our discussion today, I think it's safe to say that we're optimistic about our region and certainly of North Carolina's future. So give us a few thoughts as to why we should be optimistic. Lauren, I'll start with you, then go to Brent, then to Chris. Lauren?
Well, with North Carolina's assets, with our track record, with the Piedmont-Triad's assets and track record, we show resilience and the ability to get things done. Our people and our companies. I'm optimistic that we've shown this year really good navigating through all these challenges. We've got more to do, but we have the people, the assets, the things that will help us get to where we need to continue to go. And I'm very optimistic for those reasons.
Thanks, Lauren. Brent, your thoughts?
Well, just listening to Chris and Lee make me optimistic, and I'm grateful for their perspectives on this. But I would say, you know, we've got companies in our region right now that are hiring for hundreds of workers, and will continue. We'll have additional companies in the very near future that will be hiring for hundreds of workers. And so, again, we're gonna be faced with a talent pipeline need, and I don't have any doubt that with all of our educational and workforce assets that we have in this region, that we will continue to meet that. But I don't think you can ask for anything more than seeing a number of companies being out there hiring for new positions, including Chris's. Can't wait for that.
Thanks, Brent. Chris, your thoughts?
Well, you know, this is now the 5th in a series of 8 roundtables that we've done all across the state. And it's always fascinating. Again, we're fortunate to get to work with groups like yours, Stan, and Brent and Lauren on a daily basis, doing some of these things that make for economic development in North Carolina. But to get to hear firsthand from all of these very different but successful companies across the state, we've seen all these great stories of how companies have been resilient, but more than that, they've adapted to this very quickly changing world that we've all lived through this past 9 months, and they've innovated their way into a very different position than where they were before entering the pandemic, and in many cases, actually a stronger position than where they might have been had this COVID situation never come up in the first place. And I think that's probably the biggest reason for optimism that I have is just, look, we're going to continue going out there and trying to attract companies to North Carolina, right? We lock arms every day going out there and selling the state is a great place to do business. But let's not forget, we've got tens of thousands of already tremendous success stories of companies in North Carolina. And if we can just help some of these companies understand ways that we can support their growth needs into the future, and that's the whole point of why we're doing these is these businesses are so focused on what they're doing. If we can figure out a way to get into their hands the services and resources and support mechanisms that help them be even more successful, again, that's going to be a great win for the region, for our communities, and obviously for North Carolina. So I'm bullish, and a lot of that, just like Brent said, is because of this, what you're seeing from our business community as they respond, adapt, and evolve to the new realities that we've gotten to know.
Thanks, Chris. And if I might just add a couple comments before I turn it back over to John Loyak to wrap us up, from perspectives across the region to add to what Brent and Lauren had to say. Yeah, first of all, I want to mention again the Triad Together initiative that is underway across the region. And this is a kind of like our version of an ice bucket challenge, where we have thousands of people now on a email chain letter that we're asking them to spend, you know, up to an incremental $1,000 across our region with small privately owned companies, and in particular restaurants and breweries and things of that nature. We built so much of that together over the last 10 years that we want to make sure they make it through this phase. So that's underway, and I encourage everyone on this phone call to do their part and ask their friends and neighbors to be a part of that. And then other kind of tailwinds that we believe we have at our back as we come out the other side of the pandemic. Certainly some of the industries that have been mentioned today, manufacturing, we're natural for that. And we think that'll continue to be robust, and particularly in the industrial sector. And then the mega trends, or mega themes, if you would, that we hope emerge after out of the pandemic, and were emerging prior to this, reshoring of jobs and of businesses and industry, the regionalization of supply chains, and the fact that we live in this great quality of life region with mid-sized cities that have access to things in big cities. And so we have a lot of things that we think are working for us as we move forward into 2021 and beyond. But first things first, let's take care of our local businesses through this holiday season, and then we'll get to that. Well, thanks to this panel, and let me turn it back to John Loyak to kind of wrap us up. John?
Thank you, Stan. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Hopefully you walk away from this presentation with some insight on the value all of our partners offer when we work together. From the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina to the Piedmont-Triad Partnership, the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce, High Point Economic Development Corporation, to amazing businesses like Custom Contract Furnishings and Kepley Biosystems. To close, I'd just like to remind our audience that EDPNC serves businesses across the spectrum, all sizes, all needs, in all 100 counties. As Tracy mentioned, every day brings us a new challenge through the businesses we serve, and we take it as our responsibility to get those businesses the answer they need. We can help you find new opportunities, navigate challenging circumstances, whatever the issue might be. We want to be there with you in lockstep. On the screen here, you can see a list of some of the services that we provide at no cost. And as a follow-up from this meeting, I encourage you to get to know Tracy. She is our regional manager here in the Piedmont-Triad, and after you meet her, I think you'll be very glad that you did. One final note from me would be, if I can ask one thing of our audience today, it would be simply to remind you that one of the things I love about the Piedmont-Triad is that it's a very short drive to some of the top producers of Fraser firs in the country. And so if you haven't gotten your Christmas tree yet, this weekend might be a great time to go up in the mountains and take advantage of that. And as Stan said, we want to see how we can each individually support small businesses in any way we can. So that's all we have for today. I want to thank you again for joining, and have a great day.